Hello guys, this is Xzirez here, making a video that a lot of people have been requesting me to do, and it is a video on Paladin after TGT, or mid-range Paladin after TGT. What I think about the new cards, how I build, or how I'm currently, building mid-range Paladin, and what TGT did for the deck, etc., etc., etc. And yeah, I'm finally making it. A lot of people have been asking me to make this, and yeah, here it is. And I want to say a few things before I start this, and one of them is that my microphone is probably very bad in this video because I could not get my headset microphone to use, or not to use, but to work. So I'm using my laptop microphone, which is pretty damn shitty, to be quite frank. And I'm also kind of sick, which you might hear me coughing or taking deep breaths in between because I've been sick I was pretty sick for a while, like not anything serious, but just, flu, so my nose is still pretty stuffy. But yeah, and also I haven't played much Paladin at all after TGT. I've only played it for the last 2 or 3 days, but I've been doing very well with mid-range Paladin these past 2 or 3 days. I didn't play it at all, and then I started playing it, and I looked at my list and I was like, yeah, what can I change, how they build it, and I cut like 6 or 7 of the cards, put in some new cards, and my record so far on Asia. I haven't been able to play on EU because I'm having so many server issues. I'm on EU now, but I keep getting disconnected for some reason. But yeah, my record in Asia has been 44-5, which is the highest win rate that I think I've almost ever had. I think my win rate with the old Paladin list, when I was rank 1 for a long time, was higher, but this record is definitely, really high up there. And I would really like to play this in EU, but every time I try playing, I just get disconnected. So I've had like 10 losses in a row now, where I started playing the game, and then on turn like 4, I just get disconnected and I can't play anymore. So I've only been able to test it on Asia, on like my alt account. So it's kind of, I haven't tested it in the EU meta, but the EU and Asia meta is like very, very similar currently anyways, so I think they're pretty similar at least. Yeah, they're pretty similar. But yeah, what I did when I started making, or when I first looked at mid-range Paladin a few days ago, I was looking at all the cards, and I know what I've been wanting to make for a while. What I've been wanting to make for a while is a mid-range Paladin deck that's basically just buffs, and then good minions that helps you, have targets for your buffs. And I haven't really been able to make that because the meta hasn't really been good for it, and I also haven't been able to use Justicar before. So, and I also didn't know what to play, and I think I nailed it this time. I think the list that I have now is almost exactly what I want to be playing. There's a few cards that I'm kind of unsure of, but the overall concept of this is very good, and I think it's much better than the old version that I play. I think the old version, or whatever, that I played, it's much better against Hunters and Sues, but I think this list is just overall better, honestly. It works so well, and like, first when I started playing this, I thought, oh, I'm just lucky, and I'm just drawing well, but then after a while I just kept winning like every game, and I didn't even have that good draws. I had like terrible opening hands, and I still won the game, and I was just like really baffled at how like well this works, because it works so incredibly well against the current meta decks. There's just so many ways for me to win the game, and there's just so many ways for me to outvalue the control decks, and there's so many ways for me to kill the early game from the aggro decks. It's so amazingly good overall. And a lot of you guys might think, you look at the list and you're like, what the fuck is this? It's some kind of gimmicky deck with Blessing of Kings and Argus, and why the fuck is he playing a Xzirez and looks so bad, but it's really fucking good. And basically what I did, like I said the start, I cut Belchers and Shredders, and I replaced them with buffs. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I just couldn't do it because the meta and the cards weren't there yet. But now I can, and it works so well. I shouldn't say that, but it works really well. And yeah, Belchers and Shredders weren't really good in mid-range Paladin before. They were kind of just there because you didn't really have a definite plan on what you wanted to be doing, because you didn't have Justicar, so you couldn't really focus that much in the early game because you needed more late game. But now that you have Justicar, you can just have 3 big drops in the late game and a bunch of early game and win the game, because when you draw Justicar, you're basically secured to win the long game against any control deck. When you're putting 2 tokens on the board every single turn that has to be killed, or else they're going to be quartermastered or Blessing of Kings, it makes the late game just really easy to win and really easy to snowball. It makes for a lot more flexibility in the early game. And I'm now able to run creepers in Paladin, which is something that I always also wanted to do for a long time. I just didn't have the room. I needed to play stuff like Sylvanas, and then T Killbots, because there were so many hunters, and I had to run Sylvanas because there was just no other option really. But now there is, and I can finally make the list that I've been wanting to make for a long time. Because like I said, Shredders and Belchers aren't good in the deck. They don't really follow the token scheme, or not scheme, but the token theme of the deck. They're kind of just there because they're overpowered. And so cutting those cards is one of the best things that I could have done that could have happened to mid-range Paladin. And it's now much more focused on tokens. So yeah, let me go through some of the cards and stuff. Starting with Zombichow, of course, and Zombichow is a card that is very good. It's very good for filling up the curve. If you play it on turn 1 against aggro, you kind of just win sometimes. The 5 healing isn't really relevant at all when you're playing a deck like this, because you want to go long game and cheese them out with too much, or not cheese them, but outvalue them. So you're basically just playing a 2/3 for 1 mana, which is great. You're skipping a whole mana in the early game. And in the late game, it's pretty bad. But in the mid and early game, if you get to play it, it's so incredibly strong, and it fills out your curve really well. You can play in the Xzirez and the Zombichow on turn 6 if you're missing drops. You can play the Fender of Argus and Zombichow on turn 5. You can play Consecrate, Zombichow, True Silver Zombichow. There's a lot of room for more flexible plays when you're playing 2 of this. I've seen a lot of people cutting this and only playing 1, and you really shouldn't in a meta like this. If the meta ever becomes very control heavy, where Fire War Axe and stuff is everywhere, then I wouldn't run 2 of this, but the meta is probably never going to be like that. And if the meta isn't like that, then 2 Chow is just so much value. And 1 is just inconsistent. If I'm playing 1, I have a 50%, or not 50, I have a 15% chance of getting it on turn 1, and if I play 2, I have a 30% chance of getting it on turn 1. Or 31% chance. And that is so much higher consistency-wise. It just makes it really, really easy to get a better hand if you're playing 2 of this in the early game. If you only play 1, it might not seem like a big deal. It's really easy to cut this card and just think, oh, I'm playing 1 of these because I want more room. But if you're playing 1 of these, it's just, you're hurting the consistency so much. And it's the same with a lot of these cards. If you're playing 1 of these, you're hurting the consistency a lot. And consistency is something that Paladin is king at. The Patron Warrior is the only deck that is more consistent, if not just as consistent, at this deck. Or on Sue as well, obviously, but Sue is just hero power. The Paladin is just it. Like, the cards are so strong on their own that all you need to focus on are just consistency. Because if you can consistently play overpowered minions on every single curve and have good removal and good snowballing effects, then you're breaking the game, sort of, or not breaking the game, but you're making, you know, a very good deck. This Paladin list is probably never going to be overpowered, or a mid-range list like this. It's just really consistent. That's all it is. It's nowhere near unfair. Like, none of these cards are unfair, except for Boom. All the cards are, you know, the deck isn't doing anything unfair. It's just playing minions on curve and then trading and buffing them and playing into the long game and playing into the early game. You know, it's just very fair stuff. There's nothing overpowered about this, which I like. But yeah, play 2 Chows in almost all metas. Play 1 if the meta is like very control heavy. But play 2 in almost every single meta. Never cut 1. A lot of streamers cut this card, but a lot of streamers are idiots when it comes to making decks. Never play 1. Like, just play 2 in like 90% of the metas. Just, you know, it's consistency. It's all there is. And consistency is a very hard thing to, you know, take into account when you look at deck lists, because you kind of just want to have the strongest cards and you don't think of, oh, how often am I going to draw these cards? But consistency is very important, which is why I'm not running, you know, Harrison. And yeah, I'm running 1 equality, and I've explained this a lot of times. The reason I'm not running 2, because if I'm running 2, I have worse hands overall. I'm playing another card in my deck that is going to be dead in some cases if I'm playing 2. But I'm playing 1 and not 0 because the card is so strong in certain situations that I should always be playing 1. If I'm playing 0, there are some games that I won't have the answer for certain situations. But if I'm running 1, I will have the answer most of the time. But if I'm playing 2, I will draw it in situations where I don't want to draw it. So I think running 1 is fine. I think running 2 is too much. Yeah, I've seen some people really liking playing 2 of this, but I think if you don't draw 2 of them at the same time, then it doesn't really matter. But I find myself drawing really poorly when I'm playing 2. But if you draw like a god, then playing 2 doesn't matter. And if you get value out of playing 2, then it doesn't matter. Then you should definitely play 2. But I find myself not getting enough value to like justify playing 2. That's why I'm running 1 of this. But it's a very good card. Yeah, moving on. Haunted Creeper is a card that I've been wanting to run a long time in Paladin. It's basically the ultimate like anti-removal early game minion. It's so sticky, and it's such a token mechanic creator card. It's one of the best cards, or it's one of the best 2-drops in the game as a standalone, and as like in combination with buffs, it's even better. The card is just really, really good. And I haven't been running this before because I haven't been able to capitalize enough on early game, because I haven't had the ability to capitalize enough in early game because I haven't been able to play Justicar. Justicar just opens the possibility for Haunted Creeper in this deck. And Haunted Creeper is very good in this deck. Like I said, I've been wanting to play this card for a very long time in Paladin, and now I can finally play it, and it's really, really good. It just makes it easier for you to have a consistently good 2-drop. And it makes it easier for you to have something to buff on turn 4. And it makes Hunters a lot easier, it makes Sue a lot easier, it makes, what else? Mirrors a lot easier. Yeah, it's a super good card. I just haven't been able to have room for it until now. But it's really good in a list like this. So, yeah. And again, I'm running 2 of this for consistency. I run 2 of basically every single card, or almost every single card, because the cards that I'm running 2 of are cards that are very overpowered in most situations. The cards that I'm running one of are cards that aren't overpowered in most situations, and they're cards that are only overpowered in some situations. Hornet Creeper is usually overpowered on turn 2 every single time I play it in this deck. That's why I'm running 2 of it. And Iron Beak Owl is usually only overpowered in certain matchups, or sometimes on turn 2, turn 6, etc. Which is why I'm only running 1 of it. Running 1 is... you need to run 1, there's no way you can run 0 in any meta because you need the silence sometimes, and having 1 just means you're going to draw it when you need it. Running 2 is way too much. But in certain metas you can definitely run 2 if there's a lot of Nerubian eggs and scientists and creepers. But if there aren't, then 1 is fine. I've been running 2 in the past, but currently there's only room for 1. But it's a very good card. It's one of the, it's pretty broken. It's not a 2-drop. I don't really count it as a 2-drop. It's more like a utility card. It doesn't really matter what turn it is. It's more like you play it for value, Then we have Juggler, which is a very overpowered 2-drop. Or it's not overpowered, but it's good enough to be played in almost every single aggressive to mid-game deck in the game, which, it's kind of a sign of an overpowered card, but I don't think the effect and its whole is overpowered. I just think the card is very good. It's the same with a Surdrake. I think the card is very good, but I don't think it's overpowered. Juggler is maybe a bit better than a Surdrake, but it's still, I don't think they should nerf this card. It's not a, it's not bad overpowered, it's just good. And yeah, I don't think there's any reason to explain this. It's like a utility card in the late game. It's like something you can play on turn 2 sometimes. If they don't kill it, which they usually actually won't, you get a lot of value. You play a lot of minions in this deck, and you play your minions and you juggle their stuff. You kill them, and it's 3 damage to their face sometimes. So yeah, card is very good. Next card, Minibot. Minibot is a 3-drop, technically, for 2 mana, but it's a class card. It doesn't really work like that, but it's definitely above curve. It's like if there was a different mana system in the game, the card would probably be costed at like 2.5 mana, because it's not really a 2-drop. It's much better than almost every other 2-drop in the game. If you look at some of the 2-drops, which I can do real quick, like if you have Maimani Berserker, for example, it gets 1 more health and it gets Enraged, and then this gets Divine Shield, and Divine Shield is just very, very strong. It's super sticky on an early game card. Argent Squire is one of the best cards in the game value-wise for its cost because it has Divine Shield. But it's not being played currently because of Hornet Creeper, but Divine Shield is very, very good on minions that are being played in the early game. And Minibot is basically just the same as Argent Squire, just 1 mana more. So this card should be played in every single Paladin deck, in whatever meta, whatever design, or not in the combo deck, but most decks won't. And like if ever Paladin goes in a completely different direction, then maybe you're not going to play this, but you're going to play this in pretty much every single Paladin list until the end of days, I would assume. There's going to be some power creep, but whatever. Card is strong. You get the point. Muster for Battle, same concept. It's like the perfect token mechanic, perfect late game combo with Quartermaster, perfect utility, perfect everything. Card is probably a bit overpowered. They might, like somewhere in the future, they might end up nerfing this. I'm not sure, but they might, because the card is very strong. It's one of, if not the strongest card in this list. So I would not be surprised if this sees somewhat of a nerf, maybe, or somewhat of a remake or whatever. But it completely depends on what cards they release in the future, because currently the card isn't broken, but it's very easy to make this card broken because it's on the edge to being a bit broken. So if Paladin ever becomes super overpowered in a token way, then it might need to be nerfed, but currently it's not overpowered, but it's worth looking out for. Very good card. Other Peacekeeper is pretty much the best 3-drop in the game. I can't really, or it's not really a 3-drop, it's a utility card, but on 3 mana, I can't really think of anything that is better than this. I mean, Big Game Hunter is probably better. No, Aldor is just better. I think Aldor is one of the, if not the best 3-drop in the game. It's like reducing a minion's attack to 1 is a super strong effect, and it's only losing half a stat from the vanilla cost of this card, or of a 3-drop, is very strong. You're basically only paying half a mana to get this effect, which is very good. So I was thinking of cutting this after the TGT if there was a good 3-drop release, but there weren't any good 3-drops released, so I'm still running this. And the reason I wanted to cut this is not because the card isn't good, because it's very good, it's just that it's too slow sometimes. But there were no good 3-drops introduced, so I'm still playing this. Yeah. Card is good. Moving on. True Silver, same thing, card is very good. I was thinking of playing one of these in this deck, and maybe I should, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't played this deck enough to know if True Silver, Consecrate, or Xzirez should be a 1-of yet. And it might end up being a 1-of, and I might replace one of them for a minion, which I probably will end up doing that sometime in the future. But right now I haven't played the deck enough to know what is the best. So I'm just playing 2 True Silvers, 2 Consecrates, and 2 Xzirez. But yeah, True Silver is a great card. Moving on. Blessing of Kings, pretty much like, you know, one of the most core cards in this deck. It's like a super buff for 4 mana, and it makes minions. It makes pretty much every single minion you cast this on trade 2 for 1, and it makes them waste cards on killing the minion that goes 2 for 1, and then you're getting value, and that's basically the game plan of this deck. You're going 2 for 1 with every single minion, and then they're wasting cards, and then you're gaining cards, and then value. And if they have good answers for everything, then you still have late game cards that there's no answer for in the game. So yeah, Blessing of Kings fits very well with the theme. The card is very, very good. The only reason it hasn't been played in the past or before GVG is because there wasn't good tokens for Paladin, but the card is very good, and it should be a staple in every single Paladin or every single mid-range Paladin list moving forward. I see people cutting this card, and I think the reason they're cutting this is because they want to test other cards. I honestly don't think they're cutting this card because they think it's bad. I know Tides asked me, or Tides said he didn't get that much value off of this card, which I don't really understand. But I think some people play Paladin very differently from what I do. Because I always seem to get value from this every single game. So I just feel like it's a good card. I just feel like it's a really good card. Yeah, it's like one of the core cards of this deck. It's not going to be cut ever. Consecrate, however, could be cut. I was thinking of running one of this, or 1 True Silver, or 1 Drake for something else, but I'm not sure which one yet. I probably will end up cutting them, like I said. But for now, Consecrate is there. And the reason it's there is because there's so many but there's so many Secret Paladins. And against Secret Paladin, you consecrate their board and you win. So yeah. Defender of Argus, it's another buff card that makes your minions bigger, and it's what you're aiming for with this deck, is making your minions bigger and then trading 2 for 1, which I already explained. It's good in the matchups where card advantage doesn't really matter. It's very good in matchups where combos matter a lot, and it's very good against aggro. So I think I will always be running this is a 2-of in the future. Or actually, maybe not. I might end up cutting one of these. I'm not sure. It completely depends on the meta. But in the current meta, 2 of this is really good because I can make my minions 3 attack Or I can make my mini bots 3 attack, I can make my shows 3 attack, or chows 3 attack, which makes them not get stolen by Cabal, which is really good. And I don't die to combos when I'm playing this, because it protects me. Yeah, a pretty good card. I wanted to cut this or Belcher for this card for a very long time. I just couldn't do it because I didn't have the buff game plan yet, because Justicar didn't exist. But now that Justicar is a card, I can play this, which is something, you know, I'm playing this a lot of times now. Oh. And then I'm playing a Xzirez only for the card draw. My curve is lower than my other decks, so I'm playing 2 of this. It's a consistency card. I play a Xzirez in a lot of my decks. And because it's a card draw mechanic. I really like card draw mechanics because they make my deck better. They make my decks more consistent. And so I'm running 2 of this just because I like having cards in my hand. I don't like the feeling of just like sitting there and top decking cards. And the card is very good, so you know, it's not a bad card. It's just like some people don't like running this, and I can see why, because you're not playing a like if you play this on turn 5, it's not that good a lot of times, but I still think it's worth running 2. But a lot of people, like Trump, Tice, Strifecrow, all of them ended up cutting the Drake in my old list for Harrison, which I think is stupid, or not stupid, they're not stupid for doing it, but I think it's a very big mistake doing that. I think Xzirez adds a lot of consistency, and cards like Harrison don't, which is the reason why I'm running a Xzirez, because I want a consistency. And cutting a Xzirez is probably the reason why they didn't win as much, I think, because a Xzirez has been one of the best cards that I've ever added to this list. When I wasn't playing a Xzirez in the past, I always ended up losing card advantage in the late game, and when I'm playing 1 or 2 of these, I won't lose the card advantages easily. But I could play 1 of these in this list, it just depends on the meta. I haven't played this list enough to know like everything I should be playing, but 2 has been good so far. And then Quartermaster, as a 2 of, should probably always be a 2 of in similar metas to what is currently, you know, being seen. And yeah, it makes your tokens get buffed in the late game. Your opponent pretty much always has to trade with your tokens if there's more than 1 on the board. And if he for some reason doesn't, or he is unable to trade with your tokens, which will happen a lot of times, the only, like for example, if you're playing as Druid, the only way they clear your board is like swipe. And if they don't have swipe, you just play your muster, then you play a Quartermaster, and GG, you know. Like 70% of your games, not 70, like maybe 40% of your games, they won't have to swipe on turn 4, and they will play muster into Quartermaster and win the game. So yeah, card is great in this list. It's like one of the better cards. I used to run 1 of these, and I've seen a lot of people play 1 of these, but it's again a consistency thing. I think one of Paladin's biggest strength is consistency, and so playing a lot of 2-ofs makes a lot of sense. But I can definitely see the reason why some were playing 1 of this, and I was playing 1 of this for a while as well. It depends on the meta as well, but I think it's just too good to not run. It's like one of the cards that made Paladin what it is today after GVG. It's an insanely strong card, you know. When I first saw this card, I thought it was a fake card because it was so strong, but it's not. But yeah, it's very good. Now I'm playing Justicar, and Justicar is a card that I praise a lot because it fixes one of the issues that I had with Paladin. This is something that I talked about in the past. And what I said in my last video about Paladin is that the reason I was running Sylvanas was because there was no better option for Sylvanas. But Justicar is a better option for Sylvanas. And so immediately after I tested Justicar, I cut Sylvanas for her. Because Justicar is much better than Sylvanas. Because she's a card with split value, and In a deck like this, having a card with split value that basically auto-wins you the late game is very good. I don't really need a card like Sylvanas that helps me get the board back, because if I don't have anything on my board, or I don't have, or not if I don't have anything on my board, but if I have nothing on my board, I have no answer to what he's playing, I will lose the game anyways, which is why I'm playing so many answers, so many sticky minions, and so much shit that I can just play out of my hand instead of having to keep, because I need the board. And so Justicar is just much better than Sylvanas, because I will never be very far behind on board, because if I'm very far behind on board, then I will be losing anyways. And so I built my deck to not be far ahead or behind on board. And yeah, it auto-wins like the Priest matchup, auto-wins the Handlock a lot of times, auto-wins the Control Warrior matchup. It's already a pretty easy matchup, but yeah, it's a very good card. And it's just like what Paladin needed, honestly. It's like, it's great. Don't know what else to say. I really would like this to be a 5-4 instead of a 6-3, but it's okay that it's a 6-3. It's a bit worse, but it's okay. I can live with it being a 6-3, but it would have been a lot better if it was a 5-4. Then it might have been seen playing too many decks. I'm not sure. They probably tested this, or maybe they didn't. I mean, they released Boom, so I hope they tested this, but not sure if they did. Then I'm playing Boom, because he is overpowered. And I'm playing, Tyrion because he's overpowered. Because he's a good card, he's overpowered, he's just very good. Then I'm playing Lay on Hands because I need the card draw and the healing, and yeah, it's just staple. So that's basically a list, and I think I explained some of the concept behind it and why I think it's strong. And my win rate with this, like I said, has been extremely high, and I cannot praise this deck enough because it's been doing so well. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a bit about the cards, like I did in my last one, that I don't think should be played in Paladin, and that people are overhyping a lot. And one of them is Murloc Knight. And a lot of people think this card is good, and I can definitely see why you think this is good. And when it first came out, I thought the card was very good, but then I realized that it's too slow and it's too inconsistent. I will never want to play this on turn 4. If I'm playing this on turn 4, I will play Shredders instead. And if I play this on turn 4, I'm just losing so much value, so I always have to play it on turn 6. Then the question is, how good is it on turn 6? You know, is the card better than Justicar or Sylvanas on turn 6? No. And so why am I running this card over Sylvanas or Justicar? You know, I shouldn't be. So I should be playing this card alongside Justicar and Sylvanas, and then I'm already playing way too much late game for mid-range deck. So it's just not, there's just no room for it. And when I was talking about this card, a lot of people thought I made a comparison to Shredder, but I made a comparison to Shredder because you can't play this as a 6-drop. If you play this as a 6-drop, then you have too much late game, and it's not a good 6-drop anyways. So you will have to play this on turn 4, or you will have to be able to play this on turn 4. And as a 4-drop, the card is horrible. Because if you play it on turn 4, sure, they don't remove it and then you can hero power your next turn, great. But when will you ever want to hero power on turn 5? I can't really think of a lot of situations, but I mean, sometimes you would like to hero power on turn 5, but even if this survives and you get to hero power on turn 5, it's still not a good card. Shredder is much better than this card if you get to hero power on turn 5, because Shredder is the exact same stat distribution and the exact same value for 2 less mana. So you're basically playing 2 more mana to make it a Shredder, and that's not a good card. And like I said, you won't find room for Shredder, Murloc Knight, Sylvanas, and Justicar. And if you're like, to justify playing Murloc Knight, you will have to be playing Justicar, Sylvanas, and Shredder. Because Sylvanas, Shredder, and Justicar, and yeah, those 3 cards are just better than this card. And you don't need more late game, and you don't need this is a 4-drop because it's bad as a 4-drop. So it doesn't fit anywhere. It doesn't like fill a niche. It doesn't fill a role. It's a good card, but it doesn't do anything. Like most people that I see talking about this card just say, you know, it's a good card, but they don't think about like what it actually does. Like sure, if they leave this on the board and you get a few procs of, you win the game. But so you do that as well if you're playing Justicar. You do that as well if you're playing Dr. Boom, if you're playing Tyrion. If they don't kill your Dr. Boom or Tyrion, like the turn it gets played, you win, you know. And you don't need any more of those cards. It's just, yeah. The card is good, but it's just not needed. Then the other card that I wanted to talk about is Justicar, which I thought would be a very, very good card when I first saw it. And then I played with the card for a bit, and I figured I would need to play a lot more late game in my deck in order to make it good. And if I'm playing a lot of late game, I fall behind on board, and when I'm falling behind on board, I lose the game. And it just didn't work. I played this in a mid-range list for a while, but I never got the healing off, so it wasn't consistent enough to be worth a spot. It's a very strong card, it's just not... You don't have the luxury of skipping early game anymore. There's no way you can skip the early game. You need more early game as time goes by. The more expansions comes out, the more early game you will need to be adding. And so playing a card that basically says, you know, you need to have this many early or late game threats in your deck doesn't work because you can't afford to play that much late game. And so the card is much worse than I thought. And yeah. I was hoping for Justicar to be good because it would completely destroy Face Hunter, but Face Hunter is already, you know, bottom tier. But it wasn't a good card, and yeah, kind of sucks, but it happened. And then I'm playing no heal bot in this deck because I don't need the healing. I have enough early game. I think a lot of people can understand why I'm not playing this card. I have enough early game to stabilize, so I'm not taking that much damage. So yeah, not playing heal bot. And then I don't think there's any other cards that I would like to discuss. Oh, and I'm not running Sylvanas because, like I said, Justicar is just better as a 6-drop, or not as a 6-drop, but as a late game value card. And I'm never behind on board with this deck, and Sylvanas is only good when you're behind on board. And it's only good in the Priest matchup and Druid matchup, and those matchups I have enough cards that are good against that matchup that I don't need to tech more against it. So yeah, don't think there's anything more I want to be talking about. Oh, maybe I was thinking about this card in Paladin, but it ended up being too inconsistent. So but yeah, I don't think I want to be talking about too many or any other cards now. Like I said in the start, this list might look very weird to a lot of people. And when I started playing it, I thought it was pretty weird as well, but I figured it would work. I theorycrafted this before I played it, and I figured it would work. And at the start, I was winning a lot of games, but I wasn't sure if I was just lucky, you know, or if I actually made a good deck. But then I just kept on winning and winning and winning and winning. And I concluded that the deck was good. So yeah. But I am not sure about all these cards. Some of these cards might be bad. I haven't played it enough to know if every single card is optimal, but I think the overall theme is very good. I mean, there's a reason I've been winning so many games and that I'm ranked 2 in Asia. It's because I've been, you know, it's because I made a good list. So I'm very sure that this is much, much better than the old list that I had. I'm just not sure if everything is optimal. And I will be streaming Paladin Climb, or my Paladin Climb to Legend next season, and I will probably hit rank 1 sometime then. But I don't really have the not the time, but I don't have a good enough internet connection currently to be able to stream, so I don't think I will be able to play much at the end of the season, but I will definitely stream my Clan to Legend next season and try and go for rank 1. And yeah, so if you guys want to see me play this deck, go to my stream, and I'll probably upload some of it to YouTube as well, just for gameplay. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and see you in another gameplay video.